Oh, yeah, here we go again. Hello, and welcome into Ray on Sports. I am your host, Johnny Ray. In this podcast, we talk all things sports from my own opinion. You may agree or you may disagree, but all I do is ask that you listen. So come on in, buckle up, and let's take this ride.
All right. Here we go again. Live. This is Johnny Ray with Ray on Sports coming to you live from the JR Studios in Lancaster, California. And this week I have another special guest, a good friend of mine who's going to come on, and we're going to talk some racing, and we're going to talk some entrepreneurship as well if he has time for it. So I'm going to bring him in right now. Hello, sir. How
Hello.
are you?
I am great. How about you?
Great. So for those who don't know, this is Scott Davis, aka Scotty D. I know him as Scotty D. I never knew his last name was Davis.
Yep.
He's 33 years old from Kenosha, Wisconsin originally. He moved to California in 2015, and then he moved to Bowling Green, Kentucky in 2023. He's a mechanical engineer, and drifting is his hobby. That's how we met. We've been knowing each other. God, how long have we been knowing each other? Jeez.
Well, when I lived in Lancaster, that was 2015 to 2018, so 2017-ish, so 7 years now.
Yeah, so we've been knowing him 17 years. And he started a company called Drift Parts. I'm sorry. He sold it, and now he's starting another one focused on inspiring people and helping others, as well as producing more products. So welcome, sir. Welcome to Ray on Sports.
Thank you. Happy to be
So
here.
let's just get in. Let's get right into it. Let's talk. Oh my God, we got a lot to talk about. I haven't talked to you in a while. I've been seeing your posts. I've been trying to follow you. Watching your racing, and let's talk about the racing first. Let's get into that about the
Yeah.
drifting and all that. For people who don't know what drifting is, let's explain that to them.
Yeah. So drifting, I guess it's like the most like playful form of motorsports. I guess I'll say it in the nice way. I always call it the degenerate motorsport, but um, drifting is just it's fun. I mean, it's the most fun you can have in a car, I think. It's controlling the car sideways. You're using momentum and power to be in drift, which is, at counter steer, the back end of the car, kind of leading the way. And there's different levels of drifting. There's like a grassroots just for fun. People just go out, and obviously everybody starts there. But I got to a point where I built my car and my skill up to the point where I could do competitive drifting. And there's a pro level that I never wanted to get into, but there is a professional series in the US, and there's judging criteria for these competitions. But yeah, I mean, it's just a fun thing to do. Rear wheel drive, cars, manual. We use handbrakes. It's a very different motorsport. A lot of people watch racing and they ask if drifting is timed, and it's not. They ask if you're supposed to pass people, and you're not. And then they go, well, then what is it? But the main objective of drifting is to put the vehicle as close to objects as you can, or in zones, we call them. And then you're judged on that criteria. That's the qualifying format. And then there's tandem drift, which is what the competitions are. So you lead one battle, so the person will follow you, and then you switch it around, and then you'll follow them. And the goal with chasing is to mimic and have as much proximity to the lead car as possible. So they'll judge you based on how good your lead run was, like how much you were in the zones, how committed you were, how much angle was in the car, how few corrections you made. And then in the chase, they'll judge how close you are to the lead car. And they'll kind of use the lead car criteria to determine how good your chase was. Because if the lead car is not in any of the zones, then your chase might not be as good as if they ran a perfect line. So it's kind of confusing to explain, but once you see it, it makes a lot of sense. And then you nerd out on it like I do, and then you can see all the minutia of it. So um,
Right.
when I was actually working with you at BYD, I was traveling 8 times a year to be on a professional team. One of the years I was just a crew person, and then the following year I was a spotter. So a spotter is just people think spotter like NASCAR, they might have an idea. People might not even know that race car drivers have spotters, but in regular racing, a spotter will tell you kind of where your line is clear if people are approaching you from behind. But in drifting, the spotter job is kind of all proactive. I'm watching the way that people are running before the battle comes up, and then providing as much feedback and insight to the driver that I'm working with on how the other person drives. So I really got to pay attention to the way everybody drives and see all the adjustments and see all the judging criteria. And so I just kind of nerded out on it and got really good at being able to see what judges are looking for, how, what good driving is, how it's rewarded. But yeah, so I was doing that while I was working. And so every time I took a vacation, I was just going to work.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
it's weird. I mean, it's really hard to understand why people think that drifting is the goal is to have as little traction as possible so that you can spin the rear wheels. And it's actually the opposite. Like, we have nearly drag racing levels of grip in the car at the top end. So like a professional drift car has anywhere from like 600 is the very low end. That'd be a very low powered 600 wheel horsepower would be a very low powered professional drift car. But the average is 800 to 1200 horsepower.
Wow.
Insane. And then we run really big tires at really low tire pressures and try to get as much grip in the cars as possible.
Wow. Wow. So, for that, people, and I have, you have probably like the avid fans that watch the movies and see it in the movies and wonder, is that real? Is it CGI? Or, can they really do that? Like, I'll take a movie like Fast and Furious. That's
Yes.
one of the ones. Tokyo Drift.
It's really awesome because Tokyo Drift was like extremely revolutionary for the sport, because Tokyo Drift was early on. That was like early 2000s, and the professional series of drifting in the United States started in 2004. So Tokyo Drift was actually really ahead of its time because they actually used people who were in the professional drifting series to actually do the drifting. And it wasn't generated, and it wasn't just like stunt drivers. It was actually people in drifting doing the drifting. And it was really well choreographed, really high level drifting at the time, because 20 years ago, we didn't have things like angle kits or hydraulic handbrakes or anything that we use to be really good at drifting now, like even welded or locked differentials. They were just using factory limited slip stuff. So there's a lot of things that they were lacking at the time that they made Tokyo Drift. But somebody like Reese Millen is a legend in drifting, and he's a stunt driver. So is Reese Millen, Tanner Faust, and I think Samuel Hubinet. So they were all in kind of both. And so they were the first people really brought into movie stunts that started as a race car driver. Most people that do stunt driving for movies are just stunt drivers. I know a lot of them. And these were the first dudes that actually got brought into stunt driving from racing. And now that's kind of where they've made their living, is by being stunt drivers. So Reese Millen has done a bunch of things. Tanner Faust has done tons of movie stuff. And Samuel Hubinet was the same kind of way. So Tokyo Drift was actually like a really awesome movie because it was showcasing accurately what drifting is.
Wow. So what we saw in the movie was that actually they were actually like I mean like the I guess the parking lot scene.
Yep.
That was
that
actually
circle up. Yeah, they actually did that. Yep.
Wow. Now have you tried that? Have you done that?
That I could do it, no problem. I mean, it's not that hard to do, but it looks skilled because of the proximity to things. That's what the thrill of drifting is. It's like, oh wow, you're driving it sideways at very close proximity to things around you. Now, it takes a few tries. Like that definitely was not something that was nailed first try, but it's still a very skilled thing to do. I mean, most people can't even do a controlled donut,
right?
Let alone make a transition or maintain a drift at a certain proximity to something. So that's the thing, is like, it looks so interesting, and then people get into it and then they get really discouraged because they're not good at it.
Uh-huh.
but that's part of my journey. Is I really enjoy helping people progress in it and learning new things about it. So it's not, again, it's a hobby. It's not like saving lives or curing cancer, but it does still feel good to be a part of the community and be able to give to them and help people learn it.
Wow. Right. Now also I know that you also build your own cars as well. Is that true that you
Yeah,
build your own
yeah,
cars?
I design everything for the stuff that I build. So, like I said, I mean, I started a company making drift car parts. It grew pretty big. I sold it. I was working with that company, and then they kind of decided to go their own way. But yeah, I designed whole race cars before, like every aspect of it. I have the whole vehicle in SolidWorks, which is a CAD program.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
a big nerd about this stuff. I really enjoy it and the technical aspects of it.
Yeah, I know because I know when you were together, you taught me the CAD program, and I kind of like said, man, this is awesome. I love it. But you're like, maybe like maybe 5 steps ahead of me on it because I haven't really worked with it, but
Yeah.
I love it. So let's talk more about how long you've been racing. Like, have you just been doing the drifting, or have you been like doing the actual
Just
racing?
drifting. I honestly suck at other forms of motorsports. Like
Okay.
it's so funny because I have a full sim rig. I mean, there's race car parts galore sitting behind me, but
Hmm.
I have a sim rig over here that I sim drift in, and I'll try to like road race on it, and I'm just
Uh-huh.
so bad at it. I don't know why. I mean, I'm not like I'm not like crashing into walls or whatever. I don't make good times, and I don't pass people very well. But
Okay.
I've been drifting since 2014 was when I like first got started,
Hmm.
um, and I wasn't very good. And then when I moved over to California, I met a ton of people who were like way more into this stuff than I could even imagine. Being from
Hmm.
Wisconsin, like drifting in Wisconsin still isn't that great. But when I came to California, it was like this is the mecca at the time. So um, yeah, I kind of dove in, both feet when I got there, and met a lot of really smart people that taught me things and showed me, what the high level of drifting was. So uh, realistically, like if I were to really count my driving years, it would be 8 years, but technically 10 years.
Okay. Okay. And so this is your passion. This is what you love to do. I mean, how does it feel to, or better yet, what do you come up with the design to? Oh, wait, we got a question real quick. I got somebody on here, Mr. Arcool Sales. He's asking, does it take a lot of strength and stamina to race and drift?
Honestly, I think something that people wouldn't consider is like with drifting, we have short runs. So our average run time is 30 seconds per run. And then we do two of them in a row. And then we kind of wait until the next one. So as far as like endurance, we don't have that. But the other side of what we have is you have adrenaline up and then stagnation and then adrenaline up and stagnation. So I get tired in that way, like from the adrenaline rush and then coming back to calm and then getting back in the car and then doing another battle and having the rush go up. Um, like I guess adrenal fatigue would be a term for it, but
Okay.
we have power steering in the car, so there's not really much like muscles. And if you watched somebody drift like in a car, I mean,
Hmm.
we just sit and let the wheels spin in our hands and we pull the handbrake. It doesn't like it doesn't look like we're doing much because we're not. We're just driving a
Wow.
car. But um, I mean, I have mad respect for people who do like Le Mans or NASCAR or things like that, where they're in the car for hours on end,
Hmm.
because those dudes have to get fatigued. Luckily, we just do a minute of driving and then sit for a little bit.
So it's only so you saying like a actual race or competition is only like a minute and then you get scored on it, or how does that work?
So, like I said, we'll qualify at one point. So we'll do
Hmm.
practice, and then we'll do a qualifying session, and you qualify and get a score. Then you get put in a bracket, and then the bracket is like March Madness style, like seating bracket type thing.
Okay.
So you'll battle somebody, you'll lead, and then you'll chase, and then they'll judge you on it. I have dirt on my hand from working on my car. Um, they'll judge you on it, and then you either win or you lose. And if you win, then you have to wait for the rest of the bracket to happen before your next round.
Okay.
So it's like quite some time before you run again. So yeah, with an average run time of 30 seconds, so you'll do your lap 30 seconds. They'll switch it around. You'll do another 30-second lap. You'll get judged, and if you win, then you wait legitimately like from 30. It's a 32 bracket. Um, from 32 to 16, there's a break in between, so that's multiple hours. And then when they do the 16, they run it all the way through. So if you're, I mean, it doesn't matter. You'll do your battle, and then it's probably another 45 minutes, half hour to 45 minutes until the grade 8, and then it's another 25 minutes until the final 4, and then it's like 10 minutes until the finals or something like that. So you
Right.
still have a break in between each one.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Okay. So I got another question from him because this is my buddy. He's into racing and he loves this.
Yeah.
He said, "What would you recommend training? Would you recommend training for people who wanted to start? And what's the best kind of car to drift in?"
Yeah, so I'll answer that the way that I answer everybody. Honestly, the cost of drifting and racing, even. I mean, I think that simulators are so accessible now that I wouldn't even tell somebody to get started in a real car. I would say get a simulator setup because even somebody like me, I mean, I drive at a pretty high level, but I still use my simulator all the time to learn new tracks, to keep myself there. So if it's something that you're going to want to do for a long time, you're going to end up getting a simulator anyway. The simulator eliminates the variables of an unreliable car, the cost of tires, fuel, track entry, where your head's at, the time between runs, all these things where you can just get in it and just rip lap after lap after lap and go to any track that you want to, use any car that you want to, and learn at whatever pace that you want to. That way you're not spending a bunch of money because drifting and motorsports in general are very expensive. And I don't know, if you have the money to go do it, then do it, but most of us don't. So a simulator is a really good way to do that. And like a really good setup, like a really good starter setup is still only going to be like $1,000. But then you build a computer, so you'll be like 2,500 to $3,000 into a simulator. Then you have it, forever. It's not going to be there forever. I see his questions. Yes, track only. I think that unless you have explicit permission, you're always going to get the cops called on you because drifting is really loud.
Right.
Like, tires squealing is very loud. So somebody's going to call on you. And even if you have permission, somebody that lives nearby or whatever is going to call on you. And I think that you need to have the freedom of not being worried about getting in trouble or damaging something or having to get home. Because drifting is probably, besides rally racing, it's a high likelihood that you're going to crash into something because that's what we're trying to do is get close to stuff. But and it's also controlling a vehicle that's out of control.
Right.
But other than that, I mean, there are classes, especially in SoCal, right there at Willow Springs. There's some great people like Taka Aono and Naoki who both run different drift schools at Willow Springs. I do have sim drifting lessons online, which I think is way more useful because I can observe every single aspect. I don't have to sit in the car. People don't have the nerves of somebody good sitting in the car next to them or breaking it or whatever. You can kind of just drive the way you want.
Wow. And you said they're online? You have classes online?
Yeah. So Forged and Fervor is my new company, which is part of the whole idea of helping people or whatever. But that's the website. There's a scheduler on there for people who want to get input on sim drifting and things like that. But I do think that's the right way to go. And if you're not technically literate, like if you're not a computer nerd or if you feel like you're lost, you can even send me an email or sign up for something for me to tell you what you need to get started. Or there's plenty of people, if you know people in your area that are in drifting, chances are they'll be able to hook you up with somebody who knows how to spec out a sim.
Okay. Sounds good, Scott. Sounds good. We're on Ray on Sports here with my man Scott. I call him Scotty D. His name is Scotty Davis. He's I won't say former drifter because he still does it.
Yeah.
Um, but when I talked to him earlier, he said he was still working on the car. So what is there any? Can you give us any insight on the car you're working on now?
Yeah. So I had a New Edge Mustang with an LS and independent rear suspension that I just recently, like very recently, within the past 2 weeks, parted out because I've had it for 10 years. I mean, I had it in SoCal, I've had it in Wisconsin. But yeah, there you go. But I now am building a Cadillac CTS-V wagon with 4 seats and LS and nitrous dog box, crazy cars. So that's in the works, and then I have an E46 wagon as well. So it's a BMW, like a 2003 BMW 3 Series wagon, and I'm going to drift as well. So I see he's asking about sponsorships. Yeah, I have quite a handful of them. I'm probably going to miss a few, but Brian Tooley Racing is the biggest one. BC Racing, I've been with them for a long time. I love those dudes. NRG, I mean, there's a bunch of NRG seats behind me and a bunch more in my house. I love NRG. They've been around for the longest time for me. GT Radial, I love the tires. They're the grippiest tires I've ever ran. ICT Billet, which is, LS accessory brackets. Holly is a big partner of mine. Renegade Race Fuel. And there's tons more. Like it depends. I mean, some of the partnerships are bigger than others or whatever, but that is a part of this, and something that, if we're talking about the reality of racing, I'd really like to get into cost versus benefit type thing, because that's one of the things I feel like morally obligated to talk about whenever I talk to people about racing is, I guess, the deceptive nature of motorsports to make you think that it's like a viable career path when it's really just a very expensive hobby that sometimes you get like reimbursed for a little bit.
Right.
Which, I was lucky to like start a business in it and to get partnerships and to have the opportunities that I've had, but it's still net negative for me, like over the years,
Oh, wow.
Most people just get to well, I wouldn't even say most people. I'd say that fraction of a percent get paid to do it. I would say maybe 1% of people get to break even for it. And then I would say 98% of people are always pay for it.
Wow.
But that's
good. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
I don't want to discourage people. It's really just that I think that when, for example, when I got into it, you see people doing it at a professional level, and you're like, man, this is a career. Like, you can do this. That sounds cool. And then you get more involved with it and realize that most of them are just making a bunch of sacrifices to do it, which is a fair thing to say if you love doing it and it's worth it to you to like kind of break even on it because it's more fun than sitting at a desk. I can totally understand that. But I also know most of the people in the industry and most of the people on the professional level. And I know that a lot of them are not thriving. They just get to drift, and not have to pay for it. So a lot of these dudes either own a business or have another job. And then they get sponsorships, and the sponsorships kind of rarely reach numbers that would be impressive to anybody. I would say that 80% of the professional field has like an annual budget, and they have an 8-event series. And we could break down the cost of everything, but roughly for an 8-event series, most of the people are playing in a $70,000 to $120,000 budget for the year. To put it into perspective, you pretty much find a way to spend 15 grand around. So
wow.
You're not really making money. I mean, it's 10 to 15. So even if we call it 10, that's 80 grand a year just to go drifting. And they're, again, like I said, that's pretty much the average pro budget is 80 grand. So they're not making any money, but they're investing a lot of time into it. So it's one of those things that, like, I feel like, oh, sorry, that might be my microphone.
Yeah.
But I feel like I need to express these things because I've seen it, and I don't ever want somebody to, like, fall into this idea that they need to go invest all of their money into doing a professional motorsport, because NASCAR is the same way too. I mean, it's very few these people that authentically get to make it a career. It's usually people with wealth that are just going and finding a fun thing to spend their money doing.
Wow. So with the sponsorships, like he asked about the sponsorships. So when we see all these guys with the sponsorships, is it more of a give and take? Like, you sponsor my brand, I'm giving you this for it, and it's not really a monetary thing.
I mean, there's monetary, especially at, like, the top level. There is money,
Okay.
but that's kind of the thing. Is like it depends on who it is, like what they're. Well, it's a very good point that this is leading into. People in drifting or racing, I guess, drifting specifically, you're getting sponsored to be a marketing person. You're not getting sponsored to be a driver. Driving is one of your media, like your mediums for advertising, but you're just a paid advertiser. So the better you are at advertising, not driving, the better you are at advertising, the more sponsorship involvement you're going to get. Unless you're at the top level, I mean, the very top level, financial is hard to come by unless you're an influencer.
Wow.
So, I mean, I have some financial, but it's not enough to survive, let alone even pay for the whole racing season. And it's only one of them is financials. So, all the rest of it's just parts. And that's usually how we work. I mean, even some of the people in the professional level are just getting parts for some of their stickers. And it depends on what they value their program at. So it's like up to the driver themselves to determine the value. Unlike NASCAR, there's like set costs for each spot, kind of a thing, which the industry has determined. But drifting, it's kind of wide open.
Right. And I see a comment. He said, like, you're like a mobile billboard.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, it's not even the car itself; it's you. You know, what are you doing on your social media? What are you doing as activations at the events? You know, what is your reach? It's like social media has made it very weird to nail down what you're supposed to do, because there's people doing different things. It could be YouTube, it could be TikTok, it could be Instagram, it could be all in person stuff. It could be I mean, it could be so many different things. Maybe you just do print stuff, which nobody would, but yeah, you can't just be a good driver. Like, that's explicitly, you can't. You have to be somebody who understands marketing, running a program, managing logistics, producing media, interacting with fans. Like, it's a lot of stuff just to go drive a race car.
Wow. So let's talk about your business. I mean, I don't know which one you want to talk about, your former business or the one you're in now, because I remember, I don't know if it's the same business where you made the t-shirt designs that I think it was the jacket that I got from you, the Mustang. I guess it was the Mustang design jacket that you had got.
Yeah.
Was that the first business?
Yeah. So, I mean, I did motorcycle headlight retrofits, and then I started making drift car parts. And then I sold the drift car part business. And then I don't want to go too much into that. I'm bad at business. I didn't get paperwork signed. It was a sour business deal, and so that's why we're back at it again. But yeah, I mean, it was all just to bring more to the industry. Like, when I first started, like I said, there wasn't parts for Mustangs. It was just kind of like people homebrewed their own cars, and they were just on a forum talking about what they did. And even when you could buy parts, it was just like modified stock stuff. So if you ever broke it, it would be really hard to replace it because it was fabricated. And so I just designed, machine stuff. Um, and I started that company. So I kind of brought Mustangs into modern drifting. And yeah, I mean, started a really awesome company and made a lot of cool stuff. I'll try to be like very like succinct about it because
I hear you. I hear you.
but no, it was, I mean, the entrepreneurial side of things, I mean, we could delve into it as far as like what my perspectives on things are, but I think that's another hard thing. I guess something that people don't really ever talk about is like if you really like doing something,
Right.
starting a business doing it, you're going to do the least amount of that thing. If you're like really good at welding and you start a welding business, if you want that welding business to be successful, you're going to have to hire people to weld and you're going to have to do the business side of things.
Right.
I don't think that people ever realize that. And then you're managing money and, invoices and purchase orders and shipping and website management and manufacturing and all that kinds of things. So I liked the challenge of starting a business and figuring all that stuff out. I mean, I've worked in manufacturing and engineering for 11 years now officially. And it was just awesome to experience solving all those things. But it's definitely not something that you expect to have to do when you like, I mean, it could be anything. Like you could make a business making cakes, but you still got to buy the ingredients and bake the cake and put it in a box that's not going to tip over and find a way to get it to the customers. Cause best case scenario would be that people around the world want your cakes. And so now you have to figure out a way to internationally ship a cake overnight without it getting destroyed. And you're like, I would have never imagined I'd be specking out a cake box that's indestructible and self-uprighting or whatever. But,
wow.
yeah.
So let's talk about. So we're talking about entrepreneurship and you starting your business. Not getting into too much of the details of what happened. What kind of advice would you give to somebody who would start that you learned from this experience of going through that and then now starting over again? What kind of advice could you give to someone?
Well, the first thing is if you start a business and you want to be the person who runs the business, you need to let go of what the business is about and be a business person.
Okay.
Most CEOs of successful companies don't need to be an expert in the thing that they're in the subject matter of the business that they're running. They just need to be good with strategy and putting right people in right places. A lot of small business owners do get wrapped up in being the head honcho and putting on, the crown without doing the necessary things that need to be done. And they kind of get stagnated in their like sub like $250,000 range, which if you can figure most companies, especially in manufacturing, are doing like a 30% profit margin on the high end. So if you do that math, that's 60 grand a year in profit, which has to go back in, and then you're paying yourself 30 to 40 grand, which is not luxurious at all. So I think that be aware of like, if you want to start a business, you have to be you either get to be the subject matter expert and you find somebody who's really good at business to work alongside, or you got to figure out how to be really good at business and then trust other people that you can train with your expertise of the thing that you're starting a business in. But you can't be both.
Right.
Yeah.
So I got a question that says, would you recommend a business degree?
I don't know that I would. I don't think that it's necessary. I mean, I'm sure it's helpful. I'm not going to say it's hurtful. But I definitely don't think you need a bachelor's or like, a full 4-year degree. If you do like online classes and get kind of, the basics of economics and business, I think that you'll be off to a good start. But the most successful business is going to be something that you truly believe is going to like make a positive impact on the world, rather than just being eager about the idea of starting a business because you don't want to work for anybody else.
Right.
Like you gotta like what you're doing and truly believe in the product or the service that you're providing the world, because otherwise you're just going to look for the easy out, and then you'll just be selling fidget spinners and N95 masks during COVID, and then that stuff is very fleeting.
Right.
'Cause I don't think that you can do those kinds of things. You can be a wholesaler or kind of follow trends, but you're just going to be aiming for the bottom and chasing the low dollar. I think that somebody who doesn't have a lot of time or a lot of money to invest into doing a business, I would just start with just doing something that you're passionate about and not trying to find money in it. And then if you become good and people are bugging you so much to get what you're making or what you're doing, then consider starting a business in it. But don't start with the idea of making money.
Okay.
And that's just my experience. But
Okay. So I had a question about that business. So say you starting your business and you start putting your product out there. How would you deal with someone? Would you have stipulations on your product? Like say you're selling your product to someone and they want to redesign it and put it back out there, or they want to take something from it to make it not look like your product. What kind of what kind of things could you put in place, for them to say, hey, you can't do it. You got to take it as is.
You mean a customer or another company duplicating?
A customer, say a customer orders some parts from you and they want to build it, but they want to change your brand and try to make it more look like theirs or something like that. Even though you made it custom for them, they want to they want to change it, something on it, take something off of it or move it
Yeah,
around.
it depends on what industry you're in. But my headlight business was all custom one-of-one work.
Okay.
And the problem with it is that you get into a linear scale. Basically, you have to put in more effort for more business because things are custom. Otherwise, you just design stuff that you don't let people have a say in, and they can either buy it or they don't. And then you can scale because you can stock those items and have them produced at larger scales without you needing to make intervention on it. I think that depends on what the industry is. I don't think that you're ever going to sell somebody a generic cake. It's a really good example because it's going to be for whatever event that they want. They're going to want it tailored to their wedding or to their birthday or their graduation. So having a cake business, even if you have templates, it's still going to have some level of customization. But let's say you sell a wallet. Well, that's not even a good example because people are expressive with wallets. A plunger. Nobody's going to really need to customize a plunger. So you just mass produce them and put them on shelves. But I think there's a tricky thing that you have to be aware of. You can either have a really large business that you don't have to have customer interaction with. But I think for me, in my heart of passion, I think that kind of pulls away from why I wanted to do it. But it does make it easier. But the other side of it is you can otherwise have a local, strong presence business that focuses on customer interaction. But you can't scale a customer that's based on interaction because you're going to try to synthesize the authenticity, which is going to make it inauthentic. And then, that's kind of the experience that people will have.
Okay. And so on your business and the things that you design, how do you market it to other people? Is it more word of mouth, or is it from your drifting that you let somebody come up to you and says, hey, I love what you did, you start handing out business cards, or how does that work?
At first it was just online forums, but eventually it got to be that, I had an online store, which makes things a lot easier because you don't have to worry about word of mouth so much. But you can, I got to a point where I was dealing with companies who were going to sell my products for me. So online wholesalers. And then, just word of mouth works really well. I think that you can pay for advertising space on social media. I think that you can sponsor people, which is things that I did. Ken Block built a Fox body that I sponsored, and Vaughn Gittin Jr. and Chelsea DeNofa, and these high-end people that I worked with that gives you your brand notoriety as well. I think that, to me, I think organic growth is really good. I think that there's some level of, you can push to grow your brand, but I think that organic growth really helps you keep up with demand at a reasonable pace, and it helps you resolve growing pains at a scale that is okay. Because when I
Right.
first started, I messed stuff up and I would have to send people new things or refund them or whatever if something was broken. And if I just jumped in and like spent all the money on advertising and tried to go big scale right away, that order of magnitude of dealing with errors is much greater at that level. So kind of use the time at the beginning where you don't have much going on. Like I said, I mean, you can't quit your day job and then expect to start a business and have that be your new day job. Like
Right.
you have to have overlap. Um, but that if you let it grow organically, then you're solving issues at a like very reasonable pace, and you have enough money to inevitably pay in. Like anybody who starts a business is going to spend more than they earn for like the first year, and if not longer, because if you're doing it right, you should be investing in like making the products better and making more offerings and having the equipment and running the website and all those kinds of things. So like you're not going to make no like unless you have just $1 million idea and you somehow figure out a way to like sell air, you still like if it's a product, it takes a huge investment to make
Right.
scale
Right.
of product. If it's a service, that's how do you scale a service? You have to have more people, or maybe you've automated something. Like I said, I mean, there are outlier cases, but for the average Joe who's trying to start a small business, um, unless you have a huge financial investment at the beginning, you're not
Mhm.
going to be able to scale it large enough for it to be significant for quite some time.
Wow. Okay, so I think we missed one of our coolest questions.
Yeah.
He said, "Do you prefer natural aspiration over the bottle for your bills?" So I don't know anything about this. So
Yeah, I'll explain it. So he's asking if I prefer the engine to run without a turbo or a power adder supercharger,
okay.
or he's saying over the bottle as in nitrous. So it's
Okay.
awesome that he asked that question because I am a big NA person, but I use nitrous,
Okay.
which is not common, especially in drifting. It's not a very common thing. But I think that each has their place. I prefer naturally aspirated when possible because then you're dealing with less moving parts, less things to fail. There's a lot of people who use superchargers or turbos. Those are just heat factories and weight. But I run NALSs. I really do like NA, but I love nitrous as well. It's just a great thing that you can add on if you have to, and it's beautiful because you don't have to use it all the time.
Wow. So now let's talk about the nitrous because like we go back to the Fast and Furious movies and people see
Yeah.
like, them racing and Vin Diesel going and he hits the nitrous and all this stuff like that. And I think one of the movies where he was driving an older car, I think he was down in Mexico or something. And he drove it and he hit the
Yeah.
nitrous and the car blew up and all that.
Yeah.
Explain the nitrous to people.
So, I just learned this. This is a really weird fact, by the way. The
Uh-huh.
origin of the use of nitrous is from World War II Nazi Germany. They used nitrous to fly higher than other warplanes because nitrous adds oxygen.
Wow.
So the higher altitudes would lose oxygen, but they use nitrous to fly higher. So the whole reason we have automotive use of nitrous is because of Nazi Germany. It's just
Wow.
crazy. My friend Chris taught me that one. But
Wow.
nitrous is N2O, so it's 2 nitrogen, 1 oxygen, but it's an oxygenation utility. So it adds oxygen to your combustion chamber, which means you can make more explosion, which makes more power. But it also
Wow.
cools down the intake air charge because as it expands, it rapidly cools down. So yeah, it's just an oxygenation, something like that. Yeah, it adds oxygen to your combustion,
Wow.
your
Wow.
air
Yeah.
fuel mixture.
Okay. So when we see all that stuff, it's like, those things actually happen when we see the car blow up if it's too much. Those
Oh
things actually.
yeah, especially that one that you're talking about. He just ran nitrous directly to it. We use little tiny things called jets,
Uh-huh.
just very small orifice size,
Okay.
to control exactly how much nitrous is going in. So we'll call them, like, people ask you what shot or what jet you're using, and it's the horsepower number. So on
Okay.
my car, I run 175 shot, which is 175 horsepower increase over the NA value. But yeah, if you don't have a jet, then your shot is all of it, and you can't control how much nitrous is going to the engine, and
Hmm.
it will explode because it can't handle that much power creation.
Wow. So when you see, okay, so let me dig into the drifting side of you in your mind. So when you see these movies and people do these things on TV and you're looking at it, do you look back and go, "Nah, you really can't do that," or do you say, "Yeah, I would like to try that," or how does your mind go? What is your mindset on that?
Um, well, it's interesting because like most of the stuff in the Fast and the Furious is like horribly incorrect, and Tokyo Drift was the only one that was accurate. So it's really funny to like watch what happens in some of those movies. Um, and again, most like movie stunt scenes, like I know half the people that do them,
Oh wow.
uh, but they're also really cheesy because they're meant to look like aggressive and outrageous.
Right.
And it doesn't look like good driving to me. Um, but there's some stuff where, like, especially like knowing actually what drifting is and like knowing movie stunts and things like that. Uh, there's some stuff where I see it, I'm like, that was good. That was really good. So,
Now,
but
would
yeah,
you try?
usually it's just gaudy and cheesy.
Now, would you try any of the things you saw?
It depends. I mean, I think that like one of the things that like everybody geeks out about is when somebody's driving backwards at like 60 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And I think we all drive cars. You know how fast your car drives in reverse. Like no car
Right.
goes 60 miles an hour in reverse. And if you tried to J turn most cars at like 60, they would
Flip.
easily roll over. So
Right.
J turn is where you go backwards and then flip the front end back around.
Okay.
But I mean, the on ramp in Tokyo Drift, or that little the circle up ramp, does
Uh-huh.
seem really fun.
Okay.
Uh, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that looks fun. I wouldn't say anything in particular. Like I've gotten to do a lot of cool driving, so
Wow.
can't think of anything in particular.
Okay, so let me ask you this. This is Johnny Ray on Sports, and with my friend Scotty D here. So happy that he came on here to talk. I've been thinking about it for a while to get him on here to talk about things. Um, well, our girl said, "Wow, 175 shot." I don't know what that means, but
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, direct port too. Yeah, yep.
Okay. So, what's the most, I guess, the most dangerous thing or the most craziest thing you've seen or that as you've experienced drifting?
I mean, the irony is that I also ride motorcycles, and when I was
Oh
in
wow.
Southern California, like I used to ride the canyons up
Uh
there by
huh.
Lancaster, so Angeles Forest, and that was way more dangerous because it's just you and then the ground. In a
Yeah, of
drift
course.
car, like I'm overly safe. I have a $1,000 carbon fiber helmet. I wear a Hans device. We have 6-point harnesses, head enclosure seats. We have a roll cage. I have fire suppression in the car. Like it's as safe can be, but there's still some stuff. Like they've just recently started like shutting down roads. Like uh, organizations are actually like working with cities to shut down roads and do mountain drifting like legally. Um,
Ooh.
Drift Appalachia is one of them. It's actually really close to where I am here, but they just did one in Utah, and that stuff can get dangerous. I would say one of the craziest things, though, obviously Ken Block like set the bar so high with all of his Gymkhana videos, but when he drove the Hoonicorn up Pikes Peak and hung the back of the car off the mountain, I mean, any that turn, there's a turn in Pikes Peak that an Evo rolled down, and this dude, his page is called Chuckles Garage. He rolled a truck down it, and Ken Block almost almost rolled down it. Pikes Peak is insane. Like hill climb people are nuts. I think that's the craziest. Like rallies nuts. Drifting, we're not. The funny thing about drifting is if you followed a drift car around the track, just driving normally, you'd be like, "Oh, this isn't as fast as I thought it was," but it seems like it's pretty fast.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm on here with Scott. I appreciate him coming on. I think that's all I have. But if there's anything else you want to talk about, let's talk about it.
I think again, like I always go to like broad, like kind of topics, and
Okay.
with this, with the things that I've encountered with this, like good and bad, like I said, it is important to remember that even though it seems like I'm doing this cool thing, like man, it must be awesome to have like drifting be your career, or like you started a business and you've done all these things. I think the thing that I'm proud of the most is sticking to my value that it's not all I have. I mean, I made a business in it and I do it and I get paid for it. But it's not the only thing about me. And and it's not my identity. Like my identity is multifaceted. I have more to me. I'm a person who likes outdoorsy. I like outdoorsy things. I like climbing mountains. I like seeing nature. Sorry. I have good friends. I have a desire to learn about psychology and improve myself and to encourage others. And I think one thing that I'm finding kind of disappointing in people lately is like just linear, like making themselves single dimensional. And I just want everybody to remember that like life is multifaceted. There's other things. And the most important thing is to like surround yourself with really good people who authentically care about you. And that way you don't have the ego fear of losing that part of your identity. Because at some point you're going to not be able to do the things that you're doing now.
Right.
And when that moment comes, you want the people around you that don't care if you're doing that thing or not. So it's
that's
one
awesome.
of the one of the things that you struggle with. Like I started a business and I'm really good at drifting. There's a lot of people who want to be my friend for the wrong reasons.
Right.
And to find like the authentically good people who don't care if I'm doing it or not, and that are just as happy, eating popcorn, watching, up on Netflix as they are riding in the drift car with me. Like that's the thing to remember is that like there's so much more to life, and everything is going to come and go. And to remember that like you got to be able to like ride that wave of life and not hold on to stuff too tightly.
There you go. That's well put, Scott. Well put. Now, Scott, and like for you guys that don't know, me and Scott's been friends before all this. We met at BYD. We hit it off right away. We're good. I consider him a good friend of mine. I always kept up with him. Every once in a while, we might have hit up on social media, and I'll send him a message or say hi or whatever he's doing. So it's not like I'm like he said. You got to find people that with you in spite of. If he wasn't a drifter, I'd still be his friend. Those kind of people. So I consider you, Scott, one of those people that I would, be a friend. If your business went out of bed, if you went out of business tomorrow and you had nothing else but, like you said, Netflix and eating popcorn, I'd still be your buddy, your best friend, and I'd still be there for you. So I appreciate that. Right?
I appreciate that as well. Yeah. It's a crazy journey to look at, and we all have different experiences. And I think that we just get different opportunities to learn things and ultimately just share them with people around us. I think that we all are. Yeah, I'm getting like way too philosophical. I think that we're all here to help each other and to serve each other. I really do. And I think that we use our life experience to elevate the people around us. So as long as that's what you're doing with your life, that's awesome. It doesn't matter if you're super famous or super wealthy, or you're just, your kid's, favorite parent or their guardian or whatever. Like, as long as you're giving other people like yourself and helping out and giving back to the world, I think that your life is just as valuable as anybody else's.
All right. Well, okay. So, Scott, is there any plugs or anything you want to give to the people? You know,
Um,
I put up
yeah,
your
yeah.
email right there, and some people want to get in touch with you. But any other plugs you got?
So, well, Forged in Fervor, the idea is fervor is an intense passion, but it also means intense heat. So, saying something's forged in fervor is kind of like forged in fire, but forged in passion. So, made stronger with pressure. And my saying is ignited by passion and strengthened by pressure. Um, and it's just an idea. I mean, that's the whole part of this new business was to say, like, I'd rather have people to buy into this idea than just parts. And I want people to join the journey of recognizing the stuff that they like and how they can use it to like I said, become better and help out the world. That's just one small thing of things. I mean, if you want to check out social media, it's Scotty D 63 on Instagram and YouTube. But more so, just if my plug for everybody is go say hi to a friend, call somebody up you haven't talked to in a while, and check in with them. You know, keep those friendships going.
There you go. All right. Okay. So this is this is the end of my episode for Ray on Sports for this today. My guest today was Scotty Davis. Scott Davis. I'm sorry. I'm going to use his legal name, Scott Davis, but I call him Scotty D, and I appreciate him coming on. Thank you guys for listening to the podcast for today. If you miss any part of this episode, you can always catch it on Apple. You can catch it on Spotify. You can even ask your smart speaker to play Ray on Sports, and it'll play it back for you. So thank you guys for listening. Until next time, take care and God bless.